So I wanted to talk real quickly about sit pads, but first I want to explain I'm doing a lot of these videos for myself and my husband because we're going to be hiking the Appalachian Trail, through hiking it in 2031. And I just want to remember everything because I'm sure I'll forget these tidbits. But I did another video about this garage gear pad, and you can see I talked about it, just ripped everywhere. Everyone had trouble with them. They're too flimsy. So this one I actually taped up. This worked really well at night for insulating between the thermarest and the ground or in a shelter. But ultimately, it was not worth it at all. It tore too easy. Everyone had trouble with it. And the payoff wasn't worth it. It took up a lot of space. You could fit a whole bottle of water where this thing was. So I dumped it. And then I swapped in, I did another video where I swapped in a regular sit pad instead, but it's kind of bulky. It didn't fit inside inside my Durston pack. So I had it again where a water bottle went, which took up the whole space for a nice Coca-Cola bottle. And when I wanted to start carrying soda, I started clipping this onto the outside of the pack. But then if I wanted to get into the mesh pocket, this had to get unclipped first. Honestly, it was a luxury item. There was only one time where I really needed this to sit on a rock that was very uncomfortable. But truly, if I hadn't have had this, I would have sat, made my sandwich, stood up and left and not hung out for lunch, and that would have been fine. But one time in 5 weeks where having this was nice to have, but not necessary. This is a luxury item. If I had it over again, I either wouldn't bring it at all, or I forgot I had this ultralight. I don't think it would last long again. It's very, very thin. I don't even remember where I got this from, but it's like an ultralight sit pad. It folds up really small and fits so easily. I could actually put it right outside my bear bag, and if I wanted to, when I opened the pack, I could set this down first, but I wouldn't need to try to fit something big and bulky in one of those really nice outside pockets of my pack. And that's how I like everything to fit together. I was told a few times, people said, oh, your pack looks so light. And it wasn't that it was, well, it was light, but it was more so that I didn't have things hanging all over the outside of my pack because I don't like things clanking as I walk. This one here, I kept rubbing against the water bottle and going while I was walking, and it drove me crazy. I couldn't stand it. So I like a nice, quiet, snug pack. So if it doesn't fit in a pocket on the outside of my pack, I'm not strapping it in any other way. So I have a nice, concise backpack that doesn't have things that can snag on trees when you're going through them, or things blocking pockets where you can't get into them without taking this off first. That would drive me crazy on a trail. I wanted easy access to everything. So ultimately, I'm here to tell you, most people don't have sit pads, and you really don't need them most of the time, especially if you're going to a viewpoint at the top of a mountain. There was always some place to sit, some nice worn rock or some log bench. At campfires at night, there's logs set up at tent sites. There's places to sit everywhere. You don't really need this for anything. So maybe don't carry it. Okay, I want to take a second to remember some other things that did not work. And one of these were my icebreaker leggings for sleepwear at night. These were 200 thickness on the merino wool, 100% merino wool. I only had these I had them the whole time, but after 2 weeks of having these, only sleeping them at night, and washing them, I think 3 times at hostels or hotel, and I would delicate cycle or have the owners delicate cycle them, and I always hung them to dry, and after only 2 weeks, they got a hole in the knee. So for that much money, icebreaker, you should be ashamed of yourself. Those are so badly, poorly made. However, the 250 icebreaker merino gloves were amazing, and I had no trouble with them. But for leggings, I would just go with the same brand I did. I did the 250 weight shirt from REI. I think it was Smartwool. I would just get the same pants because I also found that these weren't quite as warm and could have been warmer. So in retrospect, I would not do that. I would just go with the REI Smartwool brand. 250 is the weight though, and I sleep warm, so I think no matter what, you'd want the 250. The second thing I did is I got a Ridge Merino sports bra, and I was so excited to get this. It fit really well. But the one thing I will say, and I noticed while I was at home hiking with it, is it's a high compression, like what do you call it, a high activity bra, and it was too compressing really. But I thought, for the smell benefits of it and antimicrobial benefits of it, and it'd be a little warmer in cool weather. But honestly, I just found after hiking for 10 hours a day, by the time I got in camp, I was ready to get this thing off and put on my town bra. And this thing weighs a lot less, and it was so cheap. I think it was like a 5 or 6 pack for like $12 on Amazon, and you can take the cups out, and it fit perfectly. It was so loose. It was actually my town bra, and I ended up wearing the town bra all the time and shipping this one home because it was just not comfortable enough. And again, if it's not comfortable or just so on your day hikes, it's going to be that much worse on a through hike. The benefit of this is I could wear it day and night. So if I kept it on at night, it just meant that I could change, get dressed or undressed more easily if I was in a shelter, because it's like wearing a bathing suit. You can take your shirt off with it and keep this on. And it just meant I was raring to go in the morning without having to worry about putting on the bra. I would just sleep in it. So I wore this thing all the time. I highly recommend skipping the expensive merino wool bra because it's just a waste of money. You don't really need it. You don't need anything that compressing. Also, as I mentioned in another video, I did away with the merino wool underwear because it never dried. Like I could not get it to dry. And when I went to my regular kind of sports Amazon kind of a mesh underwear that dries real fast, I had no issues at all after that point. It was really the way to go. The next thing I want to talk about are camp shoes. So there's some things about camp that no one talks about that you learn really quickly. And one is the privies are pretty gross. When you go into a privy, never pick up the seat, not even with your shoe. We women are used to like lifting the privy seat with your shoe. Don't do that because then you get all that in the bottom of your shoes and then you're walking around camp afterwards or in the shelters or anything, and you have all that in the bottom of your shoe. So one thing you learn pretty quickly, and people teach you, is a privy stick. So on the way to the privy bathroom, you find a stick, just a regular little twig that's strong enough to lift the seat, and you use that to lift the seat. Hold it from the middle of the branch, use it to lift the seat, do your business, use it to close the lid, and then chuck it in the woods afterwards. But always grab from the middle, that way you're not accidentally grabbing the privy end of it, right? So other thing is you always hear about camp shoes, and these are my Zero shoes, and they were amazing. I really love them. But one thing you realize is you're walking in a privy with these things, right? So when you get back out and you're taking off your shoes, it's not like your hiking shoes where you walk in a privy, you take off your shoes, you're never touching the bottom of your shoes. That's different with sandals. You end up touching the bottom of your sandals when you're packing them in, and now your hands are on a surface that was on the privy floor. Okay, so a lot of times you'll see people, let me zoom this out a little if I can. You'll see people packing their shoes into their side pockets of their packs with their water. Their water bottles are near the bathroom floor of a privy. Don't ever put your shoes in the same place where you're putting your water bottles. I had mine originally in the back mesh with my rain gear, and after one night, the first night at Stover Creek Camp, in the morning I was about to pack up my shoes and I thought, I don't want that near my rain gear, and that's just my outer gear. So I put them into a Ziploc bag the first morning when I was packing up and put them in there till I could figure it out. And what I figured out by the next night, first of all, I never need camp shoes unless I'm in camp, and I never need them until the end of the routine. So you show up at a shelter or a tent site, the first thing you do is empty out your backpack, you set up your tent, or if you're in a shelter, you go to the shelter, and you're setting up your sleeping, your thermarest, your sleep quilt, you're getting your bed set up, or you're setting a tent up, and then you're setting your bed up. So as soon as you're setting up, you are pulling everything out of your backpack because your quilt is always at the very bottom, right? And it's on the inside of a compactor bag. So after I would take everything out, the bag's empty and easy access. I learned to put my camp shoes inside of my backpack at the very bottom on the outside of this bag that held my sleep quilt and my nice clean clothes or dry clothes and my anything like that had to stay dry. These went underneath it, outside of the compactor bag, but inside of this bag. So they'd be down here flat in the bottom. Because there was never a time where I needed my camp shoes until everything else was set up first. Even if you're going to a hostel, you get to a hostel, the first thing you're doing is unpacking this bag and digging out your laundry to put in a laundry bag for them, and then you can get out your town shoes. But so that's the first thing, is you don't need to put them on the outside of your pack. If that ever changed, it might be somewhere in Maine where you're doing a water crossing, and you would know ahead of time that night to put them on the outside, inside of a protective bag, so it's not getting on your other gear. But honestly, I prefer to just get the shoes wet because I just like the stability of a shoe much more than this. But in either case, I found they were better just hide way down here and the final access at the end of the night. And then the other rule of thumb was anytime I put these on or took them off, I immediately washed my hands with soap and water. Sea to Summit soap, that's what kills norovirus, not hand gel. So these would be, when I got to camp, I would set everything up, I'd put on my camp shoes, and I'd have an hour, you know, doing the routine of hanging bear bags and cooking dinner and all that good stuff. And then at night, as soon as I finished, I get them, sit down in my tent with the feet outside. I would take these off, and then I would pack them up immediately into my backpack. So they were ready to go in the morning. I didn't need them anymore in the night, so they'd be inside at the bottom of here. And anytime that I was done touching them and putting them away, I always washed my hands with soap and water. And during the night, if I needed to go to the bathroom and get up out of my tent, I would just loose lace my hiking shoes, my Ultras, so it was an easy foot into the shoes and go off, but you never touch underneath the bottom of your shoes. And that way I'm not having to hand wash my hands in the middle of the night. I could just use hand gel. So that was a little trick I learned about these, but most people aren't connecting that together, and they're even touching all their shoes, and then they're drinking water, and they're eating their food, and they're cooking, and the norovirus from the privies are all over their hands. So gross, 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 gross. I do want to remember how I set up my bathroom kit. So I just had a single toggle bag, and I just kind of pulled it through itself to loop it onto here so it couldn't fall out. I couldn't lose it at any time. And then I put it in the side of my bag where it was easy to grab and reach. The Durston has two different sides. This one holds your water bottle, but it's not easy to get out. And this is one where you can reach back and pull out your own water bottle. And I would actually have a water bottle right here, but I could also reach and get this line and pull it forward. So I didn't have to take my pack out if I needed to go to the bathroom. And I would just slide up the toggle, and then I could pull it out. And inside would be what replaced my KULA cloth, which is part of a multi-towel. Now, since then, I did another video. They've come up with a clip attached, so you don't even need the safety pin anymore. Now, this is where I kept it when it was clean, but after I used it during the day, it would tuck in, and I would cinch it up like this, and this would just hang on the outside. And again, it would be more over here, and my water bottle would be here, but it wouldn't get on the water bottle, and it's a dry weave, so super absorbent anyway. So it dries really quick and cleans out. See the other video. But anyway, when I hiked, I could stop, pull this forward, and the P-style is right in it for easy grab. Even easier now, you can just unclip it to grab this to use. And I would undo the backpack belt and just kind of move the fanny pack to the side. I would just kind of twist it sideways on me. And that's all I had to do. And also in here, but I never needed them during the day. I was more of a campsite number 2 person. So I always had a bit of toilet paper in here, which had 6 to 8 sheets, depending how absorbent it was. And then I had like 7 or 8 more of these inside it, another Ziploc in my bear bag. So if I was ever hiking and it was raining, I didn't expose all the toilet paper to rain. And then I always kept this in a Ziploc bag its own because it could get muddy and dirty, and I didn't want it getting on the P-style. Those were the things I rarely used. In fact, I never used them on trail. I only used them at campsites. So I didn't need them very often. This I needed all the time, so I would keep it in here. And after I would use it, if I needed to, I could wipe it down with this. But honestly, first I would spray it with water. Sometimes I even had Propel water, and I would just spray it with Propel water. It just makes it smell all lemony, like lemonade. And then I could wipe it down with this after. And when I got to camp at night, I would always wash this as part of my laundry cleaning routine at the end of the night. So this is how this went in here, and then it had a single toggle that went down. What I'm looking for is a Dyneema replacement, but the Dyneemas only seem to come in a 6-inch height, and for the P-style to fit in fully and cinch up, it really needs to be 8 inches. So at some point I will try to find an 8-inch bag that's Dyneema. I think this one has a strange toggle too. It has 2 strings through the toggle. So this is the one I actually used on trail, but it was really a hassle to use. And as soon as I got home, I swapped back out to this. But That definitely worked amazingly well, no issues at all. Okay, here's another trick that I learned that I want to remember. When I packed my bear bag, all my food and stove and everything would be in there. But first thing I would do is pack my fanny pack at the very top, and it would have all my snacks in it ready for the next day, and I would keep it in the bear bag hung or lockered at night. In the morning, I would just take that fanny pack out and put it on. It was ready to go. The other thing I would do is I would always at night prepare my lunch for the next day. So I would have one bag, and it would be transferred into a Ziploc. It wouldn't be in its original bag, but I would have a Ziploc bag of whatever bread I was eating. And then I would make a lunch bag up. So I'd have one piece of pita in here. I would put one of my salmon packs in here, one pack of mayo in here. If I had tomatoes, I would put my little pack of tomatoes in here. And then I would put 1 or 2 pieces of cheese in here, depending how many calories I wanted to add in there. And then I mentioned this in another video. This is my REI multi-towel. I would wash this every night after cleaning my pot, and then it would be wet still. I'd wring it out so it'd be damp. And I would use this like a handy wipe, and I would pop this in here. So I'd have a wet cloth for lunch the next day. And I would put my clean spoon in here. And then everything else, and my guacamole was in this big bag, so I love these things when I could find them. It's worth the wait. I would put this at the top of the bag, and then all of my other food for the week would be in the bear bag, like so, and the stove pot. That's not in the same order. Usually my stove is at the bottom, but this would be all filled up. And then I would take this, and I would put it at the very top. Let me zoom up for you. Very top. And then I would put my guacamole, geez, this isn't working well, at the top. And I would always have my trash bag right at the top, the Ziploc full of your garbage, because that way when I stopped for lunch the next day, I could unroll my Durston, my backpack, and I wouldn't even have to take the bear bag out. It would be at the very top of my Durston. So I would just unclip it, unroll it, and I go, okay, here's my lunch, here's my guac. And I didn't have to dig around in my pack looking for my spoon. My spoon was always right here. I would assemble my sandwich with all my good stuff. And when I would pull this out with a spoon, this could get messy. So trying to get in the pita pocket. So it was nice that after lunch I had this nice wet wipe ready to go to clean my spoon with, to wash up my hands or any spills. Any garbage went into the garbage bag. And then I put my spoon, which was clean, back into here. This would go back in the same bag here because it might be dirty now. And I would put it back in this bag. And then this would get the garbage would get packed in the garbage bag. And this would all go back in for that night. Then that evening after dinner time, and after I cooked in my cook pot, I would use this again to help clean up the cook pot. Now that's clean, my spoon's clean, I cleaned that, and then I would repack the next day's lunch, and now it was time to go to the river. And I would take this, I would take my orange multi-cloth off the front of my pack that I used for a bathing wipe, a wet wipe, and I would take my pea cloth, whatever I was using for that, which ended up being a multi-towel instead of the KULA cloth. I would also take my pea style, any underwear. So at night when I undressed, changed clothes, I always had one Ziploc bag in my clothes bag, and that's where the used underwear would go. And then if it was nice out, I would take all these things down to the water along with my Sea to Summit soap, and I would do my laundry, right? And then I would repack this up for the next day. Now, if it was a rainy night and I didn't want to do too much laundry, I would just keep the spare pair of underwear in here, and the following night I would wash 2 pairs of underwear instead of 1. Piece of cake. Now here comes the final trick. I really love pita bread, but they never make pita bread right. I mean, here, this kind here has a slit in the side, but some of them, they have extra slits on them. Some of them, when you try to open them, they rip apart, like this one here. So you go to pull it apart and it rips. Yeah. And you end up with your salmon everywhere. So they don't all work really well. So what I would usually do is actually put all the ingredients on the top and roll it like a taco rather than trying to use the pocket of the pita bread, because it didn't tend to work. Another thing you can do is I like whole grain bread more than white bread. So I would actually get this on trail and kind of carve it out a little bit and make my own pita bread and just take out a little of the stuffing here. And I would just eat it on the trail. I put a little guacamole and squirt it on it and eat it. And then I would make my own pocket bread and I would fill it with the items, and that would work a lot better than pita sometimes. And other times it just let me try other breads. I could get like pretzel bread and just kind of tear off the end and carve it out. And when it's fresh, this has been in my refrigerator, so it's harder to work with. But when it's fresh, it's really easy to kind of make a nice little, just squeeze it out. Make a nice little pocket in there. See that? On the trail pocket bread. You just mash it a little. Even if it's cold, it works. Look at that. And then you fill it with your salmon and your little tomatoes and jam some cheese in there and squirt some mayo in there and then whop it with some guacamole. And it made a great on-trail bread where you can change up what bread you were eating, because you will get sick of tortillas and pita bread in no time. I actually hate tortillas, but I like this pretty well.